My brother humiliated me in front of his boss at his own wedding, calling me an unemployed loser, loud enough for half the reception to hear. What he didn't know was that his boss had been searching for someone exactly like me for months, and my brother's cruel introduction was about to backfire in the most spectacular way possible. But here's the real question. What do you do when the person who destroys your reputation accidentally destroys their own career in the process? I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Elena Wright, and I'm about to tell you about the most awkward, infuriating, and ultimately satisfying wedding reception I've ever attended. Spoiler alert, it was my own brother's wedding. Let me set the scene for you. It's a Saturday afternoon in late September, and I'm standing in front of my closet trying to figure out what to wear to my older brother Derek's wedding. Derek Wright, the golden child, the successful marketing executive, the guy who never missed an opportunity to remind everyone in our family that he made it while I was still figuring things out. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I wasn't some deadbeat. I had recently left my job as a graphic designer at a soul-crushing corporate firm because I wanted to pursue freelance work and build my own client base. It was a calculated risk, and I'd been doing it for about 4 months. Was I rolling in money? No. But I was building something, and I believed in it. Derek, however, saw it differently. To him, I was unemployed, a failure, someone who threw away a perfectly good job to chase some pipe dream. He'd made his opinions crystal clear at every family dinner, every phone call, every chance he got. I settled on an emerald green dress, nothing too flashy but elegant enough for a wedding at the Riverside Estate, this upscale venue about 40 minutes outside of Portland. The place was gorgeous, all white columns and manicured gardens overlooking the Willamette River. Derek had spared no expense, which wasn't surprising. He loved showing off. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Derek's fiancée, now wife, Melissa Chen, was a sweetheart. She worked as a pediatric nurse and was genuinely one of the kindest people I'd ever met. How she ended up with my brother, I'll never understand. But love works in mysterious ways, I guess. After the ceremony, we all filtered into the reception hall. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, centerpieces that probably cost more than my rent, the whole 9 yards. I found my assigned seat at table 7, safely tucked away from the main family table where Derek and Melissa would be holding court. I was actually relieved. Maybe I could just enjoy the evening, eat some overpriced chicken, and avoid any drama. That hope lasted about 45 minutes. I was chatting with a cousin I hadn't seen in years when I noticed Derek weaving through the tables with someone in tow. A man in his late 50s, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit, the kind of person who radiates authority and success. I recognized him immediately from Derek's endless bragging. Richard Sutherland, the CEO of Sutherland Marketing Group, the firm where Derek worked. My stomach dropped. Derek was heading straight for my table, and he had that look on his face. You know the one. That smug, self-satisfied expression that said he was about to do something he found hilarious. "Elena," Derek called out, his voice carrying across the reception hall. Several heads turned. "Elena, come here for a second. I want you to meet someone." I stood up, smoothing down my dress, trying to keep my expression neutral. Maybe this would be fine. Maybe he'd actually be decent for once at his own wedding. I walked over, and Derek threw his arm around my shoulder in what might have looked like a brotherly gesture to anyone who didn't know better. To me, it felt like a trap closing. "Richard, this is my little sister, Elena," Derek announced, his voice dripping with a tone I couldn't quite place. "Elena, this is Richard Sutherland, my boss and the CEO of Sutherland Marketing Group." I extended my hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Sutherland. I've heard wonderful things about your company." Richard shook my hand with a firm grip and a warm smile. "Please, call me Richard. Any family of Derek's is a family of mine." "What do you do, Elena?" Before I could open my mouth, Derek jumped in. "Oh, Elena?" He let out this laugh. This awful, condescending laugh. "Elena's currently an unemployed loser. She quit her job a few months ago to find herself or whatever." He actually made air quotes. At his own wedding, in front of his boss. The table went silent. I felt my face flush hot with humiliation. A few people nearby had definitely heard, and I could see them exchanging uncomfortable glances. But here's the thing that I noticed immediately. Richard Sutherland's expression changed. The warm smile disappeared, replaced by something harder. His eyes, which had been friendly and open, went cold as he looked at Derek. "She quit her job?" Richard asked, his tone careful. Derek, completely oblivious to the shift in atmosphere, plowed ahead. "Yeah, she was a graphic designer at some company. Gave up a steady paycheck to do freelance work. I keep telling her she needs to get a real job, but you know how it is with artists." He said the word artists, like it was something distasteful he'd found on the bottom of his shoe. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole, but I also felt this surge of anger rising in my chest. This was his wedding day, and he was using it as an opportunity to humiliate me in front of his boss? Richard turned to me, and his expression softened slightly. "What kind of graphic design work did you do, Elena?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. I specialized in brand identity and digital marketing materials. I worked with several major clients on campaign rollouts and product launches. I left to start my own freelance business because I wanted more creative control and the flexibility to choose projects that aligned with my values. "Interesting," Richard said, his eyes studying me with sudden intensity. "What kind of clients are you working with now?" Derek started to interrupt, probably with another jab, but Richard held up a hand, silencing him. It was such a subtle gesture, but it carried weight. Derek actually stopped talking mid-sentence. "I'm building my portfolio," I continued, feeling slightly more confident. "I've completed projects for 3 small businesses in the Portland area, helping them rebrand and develop their online presence. I'm also working with a nonprofit that focuses on environmental conservation. They couldn't afford a big agency, so I'm helping them pro bono to build my portfolio and support a cause I believe in." Richard nodded slowly. "Brand identity, digital marketing, campaign rollouts. That's an impressive experience. And you're doing nonprofit work? That shows character." Derek's face was starting to show the first signs of confusion. This wasn't going the way he'd planned. He'd brought his boss over to embarrass me, to show off how successful he was compared to his unemployed loser sister. But Richard wasn't laughing along. "How long have you been freelancing?" Richard asked. 4 months, I said. "It's been challenging, but I'm making steady progress. I'm currently in talks with 2 potential clients for ongoing contracts." Richard pulled out his phone. "Elena, would you mind if I got your contact information? I'd like to talk to you more about your work, maybe next week when things settle down after the wedding chaos." I blinked. "Oh, yes, of course. I'd be happy to." As I recited my email and phone number for Richard to save in his phone, I could see Derek's expression morphing from confusion to alarm. He knew something had just happened, but he couldn't quite figure out what. Richard shook my hand again, his grip warm and his smile genuine. "It was truly a pleasure meeting you, Elena. I look forward to our conversation." Then he turned to Derek, and his expression shifted again. It wasn't cold exactly, but it definitely wasn't warm anymore. "Derek, congratulations again on the wedding. I'll see you in the office on Monday." There was something in the way he said it, something that made Derek's face go pale. Richard walked away, heading back toward his table, and Derek turned to me. "What did you say to him?" he hissed. I answered his questions. I said quietly, "Unlike you, I didn't feel the need to make a scene at your wedding." I turned and walked back to my table, my heart pounding. I didn't know what had just happened, not really, but I knew one thing for certain. Derek had made a massive miscalculation. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I caught Derek glancing nervously at Richard's table several times. Melissa came by to apologize for Derek's behavior, which was sweet of her but also incredibly embarrassing. She'd apparently heard about the unemployed loser comment and was mortified. As the evening wound down and guests started to leave, I gathered my things and headed toward the exit. Just as I was about to walk out, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Richard Sutherland. "Elena, do you have just a moment?" he asked. "Of course," I said, surprised. He guided me to a quiet corner of the lobby, away from the remaining guests. I want to apologize for being part of that uncomfortable situation earlier. I had no idea Derek was going to introduce you that way. It's not your fault, I said. My brother has a habit of, well, being my brother. Richard gave a dry chuckle. I've worked with Derek for 3 years now, and I've seen hints of this attitude, but I've never seen it directed at family so blatantly. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Can I be frank with you? Please, I said. I've been looking for someone to head up a new division at Sutherland Marketing Group. We're launching a boutique creative branch that will focus specifically on working with smaller businesses and nonprofits, clients who need high-quality branding and marketing but can't afford our usual corporate rates. It's a passion project of mine. I want to make our services accessible to organizations doing good work in the community. My heart started beating faster. The position requires someone with strong design skills, marketing knowledge, and the ability to work independently with diverse clients. But more than that, it requires someone who understands what it's like to take a risk, to believe in something enough to step away from security, someone who has empathy for clients who are building something from the ground up. He looked at me intently. From what you described, Elena, you might be exactly what I'm looking for. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an interview, Richard corrected with a smile. Come to my office on Wednesday at 10. Bring your portfolio. Let's have a real conversation about what you've been working on and what this position could look like. No pressure, no commitments, just a conversation. I'll be there, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking with excitement. Good. Richard handed me his business card. And Elena? What your brother said tonight was inappropriate and unprofessional. I want you to know that's not how I run my company, and it's not how I expect my employees to conduct themselves, especially regarding family. There was something in his tone that made me think Derek's Monday morning was going to be very, very interesting. I drove home that night in a daze. My phone sat in the cup holder with Richard Sutherland's business card resting on top of. Every few minutes at red lights, I'd glance down at it, half convinced I'd imagined the entire conversation. When I got back to my apartment, a modest one-bedroom in the suburbs, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the evening in my head, Derek's smug face, the humiliation, Richard's cold stare at my brother, that offer for an interview. Sunday morning, I was up at 6, my laptop open on the kitchen table, my portfolio spread out around me. I had 3 days to prepare, and I wasn't going to waste a single hour. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. My portfolio needed work. The projects I'd completed were solid, but the presentation could be sharper. I spent the entire day reorganizing, adding case studies, documenting my process, and the results I'd achieved for each client. One small business had seen a 40% increase in online engagement after I redesigned their social media presence. Another had completely rebranded and saw their customer base grow by 25% in 2 months. These were real results, tangible proof that I knew what I was doing. Around noon, my phone rang. It was my mom, Catherine Wright. Elena, honey, I heard what Derek said last night. She began, her voice tight with anger. I am so sorry. I didn't hear it myself at the reception, but your Aunt Joyce told me this morning, and I immediately called Derek. Mom, it's fine. It is not fine, she interrupted. I raised him better than that. He tried to brush it off, said he was just joking around. But that's not a joke. That's cruelty. I told him he needs to apologize to you properly. I smiled despite myself. My mom had always been in my corner, even when she didn't fully understand my decisions. Thanks, Mom. Actually, something good came out of it. Derek's boss wants to interview me for a position at his company. There was a long pause. His boss? Richard Sutherland? Yeah, Wednesday morning. Another pause, then my mom started laughing. Actually laughing. Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Derek must be losing his mind. She wasn't wrong. My phone buzzed with a text while I was still on the call with my mom. It was Derek. We need to talk. Call me. I showed my mom the text over video chat. She snorted. Don't call him back. Not until after your interview. Let him stew. I took her advice. Monday came and went. I spent it refining my presentation, researching Sutherland Marketing Group's portfolio, and practicing my talking points. I didn't hear anything from Derek, which was unusual. Normally, he'd blow up my phone if I ignored him. Tuesday afternoon, my phone finally rang. It was Melissa, my new sister-in-law. "Elena, I'm so sorry to bother you," she said, her voice strained. "But Derek's been in a terrible mood since yesterday, and he won't tell me what's going on." Did something happen at work? I felt a pang of sympathy for her. Melissa didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of whatever was happening between Derek and his boss. "I don't know what's happening at his work, Melissa. But he introduced me to his boss at your wedding in a pretty humiliating way, and Richard Sutherland didn't seem to appreciate it. That's all I know." "I heard about that," she said quietly. "I'm really sorry. Derek can be. I love him, but he can be thoughtless sometimes." "It's not your fault," I assured her. And honestly, something good came out of it. Richard offered me an interview for a position at his company. "I'm meeting with him tomorrow," Melissa gasped. "Oh my God, Elena, that's amazing." "But," she trailed off. "But Derek's probably not happy about it," I finished for her. "He doesn't know yet," Melissa admitted. "He's been distracted by something at work. He came home Monday evening looking like he'd seen a ghost, locked himself in his office for hours. He's barely spoken to me since." "Interesting. Very interesting." "Well, I haven't done anything wrong," I said firmly. "Richard offered me an interview based on my qualifications. If Derek has a problem with that, it's his problem, not mine." "You're absolutely right," Melissa agreed. "Good luck tomorrow." "I mean that sincerely. I think you'd be great at whatever position Richard has in mind." We hung up, and I felt my resolve strengthen. Whatever was happening with Derek at work, I wasn't going to let it affect my interview. This opportunity was mine, and I'd earned it through my own skills and experience, not because of any family drama. Wednesday morning arrived. I woke up at 6:30, giving myself plenty of time to get ready. I chose a navy blue blazer and pants combo, professional but creative. I wanted to look the part without losing my personal style. Sutherland Marketing Group's offices were downtown, in a sleek glass building overlooking the waterfront. I arrived 15 minutes early and spent the time in my car doing breathing exercises and reviewing my key talking points one last time. At exactly 9:55, I walked through the lobby doors. The receptionist, a friendly woman in her 30s named Amy Holloway, according to her nameplate, greeted me with a warm smile. "You must be Elena Wright. Mr. Sutherland is expecting you. I'll let him know you're here." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly for a moment, then stood up. "Follow me, please." We walked down a corridor lined with framed campaigns and awards. The place screamed success and creativity in equal measure. Amy led me to a large corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that probably cost a fortune. Richard Sutherland stood as I entered, coming around his desk to shake my hand. "Elena, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." I sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, setting my portfolio bag beside me. Richard settled back into his own chair, but there was something different about his demeanor. He looked tired, and there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there at the wedding. "Before we begin," Richard said, "I want to address something directly. On Monday morning, I had a very difficult conversation with your brother." My stomach dropped. "Oh, I want you to know that what I'm about to offer you, if I offer you anything, is completely separate from what happened with Derek. This interview is based solely on your qualifications and what you told me about your work. Do you understand?" I nodded, my mouth dry. "What happened with Derek?" Richard leaned back in his chair. "I'm limited in what I can share due to company policy and privacy concerns. What I can tell you is that Derek is no longer with Sutherland Marketing Group. He submitted his resignation Monday afternoon, effective immediately." The room seemed to tilt. "He quit?" "He resigned," Richard confirmed, after a conversation in which I made it very clear that his behavior at the wedding was unacceptable. I explained that the way he spoke about you and to you reflected poorly on his character and judgment, and that it raised serious questions about how he might treat colleagues or clients he deemed beneath him. I sat there, stunned. Derek had quit, or been forced to quit. Either way, he was out of a job. I want to be absolutely clear, Richard continued, his voice firm. You are not responsible for Derek's choices. He created this situation through his own actions. I would have offered you this interview whether Derek worked for me or not, but I won't pretend that his behavior didn't influence my decision to have that conversation with him on Monday. In my company, we treat people with respect. Family, colleagues, clients, everyone. Derek demonstrated that he doesn't share those values. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt vindicated. Mostly, I just felt overwhelmed. I understand this is a lot to process, Richard said, his tone softening. If you need time to think about whether you still want to proceed with this interview, I completely understand. I took a deep breath. Derek had humiliated me. He'd spent years making me feel small, unsuccessful, like a failure. And when his behavior finally caught up with him, that wasn't my fault. That was his choice. I'd like to proceed with the interview, I said, my voice steady. Richard smiled, and just like that, the tension in the room eased. Excellent. Then let's talk about what you've been working on. I'd love to see your portfolio. For the next hour, we talked. Really talked. I showed him my work, explained my process, walked him through the challenges I'd faced with each client and how I'd solved them. Richard asked insightful questions, pushed me on my choices, made me defend my creative decisions. It was exhilarating. Then he told me about the new division he wanted to create. It would focus on small businesses, startups, and nonprofits, providing them with the same level of professional branding and marketing that Fortune 500 companies received, but at prices they could actually afford. It was about making quality marketing accessible and helping organizations that were doing meaningful work in their communities. I've wanted to do this for years, Richard admitted. But I needed the right person to lead it, someone who understood both the business side and the creative side, someone who had empathy for clients who were taking risks and building something from scratch, someone who wasn't just in it for the money. He looked at me directly. Elena, I think you could be that person. But this would be a big job. You'd be building this division from the ground up, developing the business model, setting pricing structures, recruiting a small team eventually, and handling the first batch of clients yourself. It would be challenging, sometimes frustrating, and there would be growing pains. I want it, I said without hesitation. This is exactly the kind of work I left my corporate job to do. And having the resources and support of an established firm while doing it, that's the best of both worlds. Richard grinned. Then let's talk about the details. Salary, benefits, timeline. By the time I left his office 90 minutes later, I had a job offer. A real, official offer with a salary that was actually higher than what I'd been making at my old corporate position, plus benefits, and the creative freedom I'd been craving. I walked to my car in a daze for the second time in 4 days. But this time, it wasn't confusion or shock. It was pure, unadulterated joy. I sat in my car outside the Sutherland Marketing Group building for 10 minutes, just staring at the formal offer letter Richard had printed out and handed me before I left. Director of the Community Engagement Division. It even had a title that sounded impressive. My phone buzzed. It was my mom calling for the 3rd time that morning. I'd texted her before the interview started, but I'd been too caught up in everything to respond since. Mom, I got it, I said the moment I answered. She screamed, literally. Screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Oh my God, Elena, I'm so proud of you. Tell me everything. I gave her the highlights, leaving out the part about Derek resigning. That felt like information she should hear from him first, even though I knew it would get back to her eventually. When do you start? She asked. 2 weeks. Richard wants me to use the time to wrap up my freelance commitments properly and transition my current clients. He said it shows integrity to finish what you started. That man is a class act, Mom said. I always thought so from what Derek told us about him. Speaking of Derek, have you heard from him? No, I said, honestly. Not since his text on Sunday. Well, he's been oddly quiet. He canceled Sunday dinner this week, saying he had things to handle. Melissa called me yesterday, sounding worried. I felt a twinge of guilt again, but I pushed it down. Derek's situation was his own doing. I'm sure he'll reach out when he's ready. After I hung up with Mom, I drove to my favorite coffee shop and treated myself to an overpriced latte and a pastry. I deserved it. I sat by the window, watching people walk by, and let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. 4 months ago, I'd taken a terrifying leap, leaving security for uncertainty. And now? Now I had something better than what I'd left behind. A position where I could do meaningful work, help people, and get paid well for it. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Derek. "We need to talk, now. Where are you?" I stared at the text for a long moment. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to make him wait the way he'd made me feel small for years. But another part of me knew this conversation had to happen eventually. "Riverside Coffee on Morrison Street?" I typed back. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I ordered another coffee and waited. 23 minutes later, Derek walked through the door. He looked terrible. His hair was messy, he had dark circles under his eyes, and he was wearing jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, which was shocking for someone who usually dressed like he was heading to a board meeting even on weekends. He spotted me, walked over, and dropped into the chair across from me without a word. "You got the job," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "I did," Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course you did. This is perfect." "Just perfect." "Derek, I didn't ask for any of this. Didn't you?" he snapped, his voice sharp enough that a couple at the next table glanced over. He lowered his voice but kept the edge. "You couldn't just let me have my wedding without making it about you. You had to charm Richard, make me look bad, get me fired." "I didn't get you fired," I interrupted, my own anger rising. "You resigned, and you weren't fired because of me. You were fired because of how you treated me. There's a difference." "Semantics," Derek spat. "It's not semantics," I said firmly. "You introduced me to your boss as an unemployed loser at your own wedding, in front of dozens of people. You humiliated me on purpose, and your boss saw the kind of person you really are. That's on you, not me." Derek ran his hands through his hair. "Do you have any idea what you've cost me? I had a career at that firm. I was being considered for senior director. I had clients, projects, and a reputation. And now I'm unemployed, and you're taking my job." "I'm not taking your job," I said. "I'm taking a completely different position that didn't even exist before. You worked in corporate accounts. I'm going to be working with small businesses and nonprofits. It's not the same thing at all. It's at the same company. A company that has over 100 employees, Derek. This isn't about you." He stared at me, his jaw clenched. "I can't believe you'd do this. After everything I've done for you, done for me?" I cut him off, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "What exactly have you done for me? You've spent the last 4 months telling me I'm a failure? You've made snide comments at every family gathering about how I threw away my career. You've made me feel worthless at every opportunity. So please, enlighten me about what you've done for me." Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "I was trying to motivate you. To push you to get back on track. That's not motivation, Derek. That's cruelty. And maybe if you'd treated people with respect, including your own sister, you'd still have your job." We sat in tense silence for a moment. Finally, Derek slumped back in his chair, some of the fight draining out of him. "Melissa's furious with me. She should be. She said I've been a terrible brother to you. That I was mean and condescending and that I deserved what happened?" He looked down at his hands. "She's not wrong." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from Derek. "What are you going to do now?" I asked, my tone softening slightly. "I don't know. I've got some savings. I've already put out feelers with a few other firms in the area, but Richard's reach in this industry is wide. Word gets around." He looked up at me. "Did he tell you why he really fired me?" "He said he couldn't discuss the details, but that your behavior at the wedding reflected poorly on your judgment and character." Derek nodded slowly. "He said that someone who would treat family that way couldn't be trusted to treat clients or colleagues with respect. He said I'd shown him that I lacked the integrity required to represent his company." He paused. "And you know what the worst part is? He's right. I was awful to you. I've been awful to you for months, maybe years. I didn't know what to say to that. This was the most honest Derek had been with me in as long as I could remember. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for what I said at the wedding. I'm sorry for all the times I made you feel like a failure. I was jealous." "Jealous?" I couldn't help my surprised tone. "You had the guts to walk away from security and chase what you wanted. I never did that. I played it safe my entire life, took the expected path, climbed the corporate ladder because that's what you're supposed to do, and then you just left. You risked everything to do what made you happy, and I hated you for it because I never had that courage." Derek wiped at his eyes quickly. "And then you ended up landing on your feet anyway, getting an even better opportunity than what you left behind. It made me feel like a fool for never taking any risks." I sat back, processing this confession. My brother, the successful marketing executive, the golden child, had been jealous of me. "Derek, you can still take risks. You can still figure out what you want and go after it. You're not locked into one path forever. Maybe," he said, though he didn't sound convinced, "I need to figure some things out. About my career, about who I am, about what actually matters." He looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. When you start at Sutherland Marketing Group, could we just not tell everyone at family events, at least for a while? I need some time before I have to answer questions about why I left the company the same time you joined it." I understood what he was asking. He needed space to deal with this without the added pressure of family scrutiny. "Okay, I'll keep it quiet for now, but eventually, it's going to come out. I know. I just need time." Derek stood up, pushed his chair in. "For what it's worth, Elena, you're going to be great at that job. Richard's lucky to have you." Then he walked out of the coffee shop, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my half-finished latte. I sat there for another hour, watching the clouds roll across the sky through the window. My relationship with Derek was complicated, probably always would be, but maybe this was a turning point. Maybe hitting rock bottom was what he needed to become a better person. As for me, I had 2 weeks to finish my current projects, prepare for my new role, and get ready to build something from the ground up. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. "Division launch plan," I typed at the top. Then I started brainstorming. Client outreach strategies, team structure, pricing models, partnership opportunities with local business associations and nonprofit networks. The ideas flowed faster than I could type them. This was it. This was what I'd been working toward, even when I hadn't known exactly what shape it would take. 2 weeks later, I walked into the Sutherland Marketing Group offices as an official employee. Amy at the front desk greeted me with a huge smile and a welcome gift basket from the team. Richard met me in the lobby and personally gave me a tour of the office, introducing me to key people in every department. My office was smaller than Richard's but still impressive, with a window view and enough space for meetings with clients. On my desk was a nameplate that read Elena Wright, Director of Community Engagement Division, and a handwritten note from Richard that said, "Welcome to the team. I can't wait to see what you build here." I sat down in my chair, looked around at my new office, and smiled. This was just the beginning. My first month at Sutherland Marketing Group was a whirlwind. Richard gave me considerable autonomy, which was both thrilling and terrifying. I had to develop the entire framework for the Community Engagement Division from scratch. I started by researching the market. How many small businesses in the Portland area could benefit from professional branding but couldn't afford traditional agency rates? How many nonprofits were operating with outdated websites and minimal marketing presence? The numbers were staggering. My second week, Richard assigned me a small budget to hire an assistant. I interviewed 7 candidates and ultimately chose a recent college graduate named Marcus Patterson. He was eager, creative, and had a portfolio that showed raw talent, even if it lacked professional polish. He reminded me of myself 4 months ago, hungry to prove himself. "Welcome to the team," I told him on his first day. "Fair warning, we're building this from nothing. It's going to be messy and chaotic, but it's also going to be exciting." Marcus grinned. "Messy and chaotic is my specialty." He wasn't wrong. The kid had energy and ideas for days. Within his first week, he'd already designed 3 mock-up campaigns for hypothetical clients and created a social media strategy template we could customize for different businesses. "You're going to fit in perfectly here," I told him. By week 6, we had our first client, a small bakery called Sweet Haven, run by a woman named Jennifer Cole. She'd been in business for 3 years, relying entirely on word of mouth and a bare-bones Facebook page. She came to us because she'd heard about our division through a local business association newsletter. "I can't afford much," Jennifer admitted during our first meeting, "but I'm barely staying afloat. I need help getting my name out there." I quoted her a price that was a fraction of what traditional agencies would charge. Her eyes actually teared up. "I can afford that. That's actually doable." Marcus and I spent the next 3 weeks transforming Sweet Haven's entire presence. New logo, color scheme, professional website, social media strategy, local advertising campaign. We even helped her develop a unique brand story, highlighting her commitment to using locally sourced ingredients and traditional baking methods. The results were almost immediate. Within 2 months, Jennifer's foot traffic increased by 60%. Her online orders tripled. She called me crying happy tears. "You saved my business," she said. "I can't thank you enough." That phone call made every late night and weekend I'd worked was worth it. This was why I'd left my corporate job. This was what I'd been searching for. Word spread quickly in the small business community. By month 3, we had a waiting list of potential clients. I pitched Richard on hiring 2 more team members, and he approved it without hesitation. "The division is exceeding every projection I had." He told me during our quarterly review, "You're doing exceptional work, Elena." Things at home were more complicated. Derek had been noticeably absent from family gatherings. He'd show up at Sunday dinners occasionally, but he was quiet, withdrawn. According to Melissa, he was still job hunting but hadn't found the right fit yet. I'd kept my promise and hadn't told anyone in the family about my new job. I'd simply said I'd landed a position at a marketing firm and left it vague. My parents were thrilled, and that was enough for now. But keeping the secret was getting harder, especially as my success grew. Richard wanted to feature the community engagement division in the company, newsletter and on their website. That would make it very public very quickly. I called Derek one evening in late October. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" His voice was flat, tired. "Richard wants to publicize the new division. It's going to be on the company website, in newsletters, possibly picked up by local business publications. Your name won't be mentioned, but people will know I work at Sutherland Marketing Group." There was a long silence. "When?" "Next week. I wanted to give you a heads up before it goes public." Another silence. Then Derek sighed. "Thanks for telling me. I guess I knew this was coming. How are you doing?" "Really? Honestly, I'm struggling. I've had 3 interviews, all dead ends. Every time I get close, something falls through. I think Richard's reputation in the industry is bigger than I realized. People are asking questions about why I left. I felt a pang of sympathy despite everything. What are you telling them?" "The truth. That I made a serious error in judgment, treated someone poorly, and my boss rightfully called me on it. Some interviewers respect honesty. Others see it as a red flag. Derek, have you considered looking outside marketing? Maybe this is an opportunity to try something different." "Like what?" "Marketing is all I know. It's all I've ever done." "That's not true. You have skills that transfer. Management, client relations, strategic thinking. Maybe you could consult independently, or work for a startup where they value hustle over pedigree." He was quiet for a moment. "Melissa said something similar. She thinks I should take some time to figure out what I actually want, instead of just chasing the next corporate position. She's smart. You should listen to her." "Yeah," he paused. "Elena, I saw the work you did for Sweet Haven Bakery. Jennifer posted about it on the Business Association forum. It's really good. Like, genuinely impressive. I wasn't expecting that. Thanks. That means a lot. I'm trying, to be better, to be the kind of person who can genuinely celebrate your success instead of resenting it. I know you are." After we hung up, I felt lighter. Derek and I would probably never be close, but maybe we could have a functional, respectful relationship. That was progress. The following week, Sutherland Marketing Group launched the feature about the Community Engagement Division. Richard had arranged for a local business magazine to do a profile piece as well. The reporter, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, spent an afternoon interviewing me and some of our clients. The article came out 2 weeks later with the headline, Marketing Executive Creates Division to Help Small Businesses Compete. It featured a photo of me in my office, quotes from Jennifer and 2 other clients, and a sidebar about the growing trend of agencies offering affordable services to underserved markets. My phone exploded. Friends I hadn't talked to in years were congratulating me. Former colleagues from my old job were sending messages. My mom called crying happy tears. My dad sent a text that simply said, "Proud of you, kiddo," which was his highest form of praise. And then the unexpected happened. A nonprofit called Future Leaders Initiative reached out. They worked with at-risk youth, providing mentorship and job training programs. Their director, a man named David Torres, had read the article. "We have zero marketing budget," he admitted during our initial call. "But we're doing important work, and we're struggling to get the word out. We need more volunteers, more donors, more community awareness. Send me your information," I told him. "Let me see what we can do." I brought the proposal to Richard. "I know they can't pay much, maybe not anything at all, but this is exactly the kind of organization our division was designed to help." Richard didn't hesitate. "Do it. Take them on pro bono if necessary. We can absorb the cost, and the impact will be worth more than the revenue." Marcus and I threw ourselves into the Future Leaders Initiative project. We created a complete rebrand, developed a compelling narrative around their success stories, built a website that showcased their programs, and launched a social media campaign that highlighted the teens they'd helped. Within 6 weeks, Future Leaders Initiative had recruited 40 new volunteers and secured 3 major donations, totaling over $50,000. David called me sobbing. "You have no idea what this means," he said. "We were on the verge of having to cut programs. Now we can expand. We can help more kids." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a job. This was a calling. I was using my skills to make a tangible difference in people's lives, in my community. The Community Engagement Division's success caught the attention of Sutherland Marketing Group's board of directors. Richard called me into his office one morning in early December. "The board wants to expand your division," he said, grinning. "They're approving a budget for 5 more hires and an increased marketing budget to promote your services. Elena, you've built something special here." I could barely process it. 6 months ago, I'd been freelancing from my apartment, worried about paying rent. Now, I was running a growing division at a prestigious firm, helping businesses and nonprofits thrive, and getting recognition for work that actually mattered. "There's something else," Richard continued. "The board is promoting you to senior director and giving you a seat at the leadership table. You'll be involved in company-wide strategic decisions." I sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "Richard, I don't know what to say." "Say yes." "Yes," I managed, laughing in disbelief. "Absolutely yes." As I walked back to my office, I passed Amy at reception. She gave me a knowing smile. "Congratulations, Senior Director. News travels fast around here. Richard's been telling everyone. Who'll listen how brilliant you are. We all knew this was coming." Back in my office, I looked out the window at the Portland skyline. The rain was falling, typical for December, but the city looked beautiful anyway. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Derek. "Mom told me about your promotion. Congratulations." "You earned it." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks. How are things going?" "Better. I met with a startup yesterday. They need someone to build their marketing department from scratch. It's risky, but I think I'm ready for that. Melissa's been teaching me that safety isn't always best." "Sounds like you're figuring it out." "Yeah. Maybe I am." I set my phone down and opened my laptop. I had work to do, a division to expand, lives to impact, and I couldn't wait to get started. Christmas came fast. Mom insisted on hosting a big family dinner, and for the first time in months, everyone would be there, including Derek and Melissa. I arrived at my parents' house in the suburbs carrying a bottle of wine and a sense of nervousness I couldn't quite shake. The secret about where I worked had been out publicly for weeks now, but we'd never addressed it as a family. Tonight felt like that reckoning was coming. Derek's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. I grabbed my things and headed inside, greeted by the smell of my mom's famous roast and the sound of Christmas music playing softly in the background. "Elena." Mom pulled me into a tight hug the moment I walked through the door. My successful daughter, the senior director. I laughed, hugging her back. Mom, please don't make a big deal out of it. Too late. Dad called from the living room. We already told everyone at church. The Hernandez family across the street. The mailman. Dad! Dad! He appeared in the doorway, grinning. What? We're proud. Sue us. Derek was sitting on the couch with Melissa, and when our eyes met, he gave me a small nod. Melissa jumped up and hugged me immediately. Congratulations. On everything, she said warmly. I've been following the division's Instagram page. The work you're doing is incredible. Thanks, Melissa. That means a lot. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. We fell into easy conversation about holiday plans, Mom's new book club, Dad's golf game. It felt almost normal, except for the elephant in the room that everyone was politely ignoring. Finally, over dessert, my Aunt Joyce, who never could leave well enough alone, brought it up. So, Elena, Derek, I have to ask. You're both in marketing, you're both in Portland. Did you know Elena was working at your old company, Derek? The table went silent. Mom shot Aunt Joyce a look that could have melted steel, but the damage was done. Derek set down his fork carefully. I knew. You did? Dad looked between us, confused. How come nobody mentioned this before? I jumped in. Because it's complicated, and Derek needed time to process everything. Process what? Aunt Joyce pressed, clearly enjoying the drama. Aunt Joyce, maybe we should… I started, but Derek interrupted. It's fine, Elena. He took a breath. I used to work at Sutherland Marketing Group. I resigned back in September, right after the wedding. Elena started working there a few weeks later in a completely different division. You resigned? Mom's face showed genuine surprise. You told us you were looking for new opportunities. You made it sound voluntary. It was voluntary, Derek said. Technically. But it was made very clear to me that my behavior had become a liability. He looked at me. Specifically, the way I treated Elena. The table was deadly quiet now. At my wedding, I introduced Elena to my boss as an unemployed loser, Derek continued, his voice steady but strained, in front of other guests. Richard Sutherland, the CEO, overheard. He didn't appreciate me publicly humiliating my sister, and he made it clear that someone who treats family that way doesn't belong in his company. So I resigned before. I was fired. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Dad's expression darkened. Even Aunt Joyce looked uncomfortable now. What Richard didn't know at the time, Derek went on, was that Elena actually had the exact qualifications he'd been looking for to lead a new division. She interviewed, got the job on her own merit, and has built something genuinely impressive. None of that had anything to do with me, except that my own behavior gave Richard a chance to see how talented she actually is. Melissa reached over and squeezed Derek's hand. I've spent the last 3 months angry at everyone but myself, Derek said. Angry at Elena for succeeding. Angry at Richard for calling me out. Angry at the universe for the timing. But the truth is, I created this situation. I was cruel to my sister because I was jealous of her courage to take risks. And I paid the price for that cruelty. Derek, I started, not sure what to say. Let me finish, he said gently. Elena kept this quiet to protect me from family scrutiny while I figured my life out. She didn't have to do that. She could have celebrated her success openly from day one. But she gave me space and dignity I probably didn't deserve. He looked at me directly. Thank you for that. I felt tears prickling my eyes. You're welcome. Mom was crying openly now. Dad cleared his throat roughly, clearly emotional. Even Aunt Joyce had the decency to look ashamed for prying. So what are you doing now? Dad asked Derek, his voice gruff. For work? Derek's face brightened slightly. I actually accepted a position last week. Chief Marketing Officer at a tech startup called Innovate Labs. It's a huge pay cut from what I was making, but the equity stake is significant if the company succeeds. And I'll be building their entire marketing strategy from the ground up. That sounds like a big risk, Dad observed. It is, Derek agreed. But I'm learning that sometimes risk is where growth happens. Elena taught me that, even if she didn't mean to. Melissa beamed at him, clearly proud. The conversation shifted after that, moving to safer topics. But something had fundamentally changed in the family dynamic. Derek had owned his mistakes publicly, and I'd seen a side of my brother I wasn't sure had existed before. After dinner, Derek and I ended up on the back porch while everyone else was in the living room arguing about what movie to watch. "That was brave," I told him. "What you said in there," he shrugged. "It was overdue. I'm tired of hiding and making excuses. What I did was wrong, and people should know that." "How's the new job?" "Terrifying," he admitted with a laugh. "The startup world is nothing like corporate. Everything moves fast, nothing's guaranteed, and half the time I have no idea if what we're doing will work. But it's exciting. I feel alive in a way I haven't in years. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you too. Really." He looked at me seriously. "I read that magazine article about your division 3 times. The work you're doing matters, Elena. You're changing lives. We're just helping small businesses and nonprofits market themselves. No, you're giving people hope. You're making it possible for someone like Jennifer at Sweet Haven to keep her dream alive. That's not just marketing. That's the impact." I bumped his shoulder with mine. "Hey, look at you, getting all philosophical. Melissa's influence," he said with a grin. "She's been making me read self-help books and do therapy. It's annoyingly effective." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the winter sky. "You know what's funny?" Derek said. "Richard called me last week." I turned to him, surprised. "Really? What did he want?" "To check in. Ask how I was doing. He said he hoped there were no hard feelings and that he'd be happy to serve as a reference if I needed one, with the caveat that he'd be honest about why I left but also about my strengths as a marketer. That was decent of him. It was more than decent. It was generous." Derek paused. "He also said I should be proud of you. That the division you're building is the kind of thing that defines a company's legacy." My throat tightened with emotion. "He's not wrong," Derek continued. "What you're doing is going to outlast both of us. Years from now, there will be businesses thriving because you helped them when no one else would." "Okay, you're going to make me cry. Good. You deserve to hear it." We headed back inside, where Mom had won the movie argument and was putting on "It's a Wonderful Life," her annual Christmas tradition. I settled onto the couch between my parents while Derek and Melissa cuddled in the armchair. As the movie played, I thought about how much had changed in 4 months. I'd gone from freelancing in my apartment, questioning every decision, to leading a division that was making a real difference. Derek had gone from corporate golden child to startup CMO, finding himself in the process. My phone buzzed quietly. It was a text from Marcus. "Boss, I know it's Christmas Eve, but I just had an idea for the community outreach program we discussed. Can we meet Monday to brainstorm?" I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. See you Monday." That was the thing about doing work you loved. It never really felt like work. It felt like purpose. Mom noticed me smiling at my phone. "Work? Always," I said, "but I wouldn't have it any other way." She kissed my forehead. "My daughter, the director. Never thought I'd see the day when you'd out-corporate your brother." "Mom," Derek and I said simultaneously, then laughed. "What? I'm just stating facts." Dad shushed us as the movie reached his favorite part. We settled in to watch, and for the first time in months, everything felt right. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up early and checked my work email out of habit. There was a message from Richard with the subject line, "Year-End Reflection." I opened it. "Elena, as the year comes to a close, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for everything you've accomplished. When I met you at your brother's wedding, I saw potential. What I didn't anticipate was that you would exceed every expectation I had. The community engagement division isn't just successful, it's transformative. You've proven that business and social impact aren't mutually exclusive. I'm honored to work with you, and I'm excited to see what we build together in the new year. Merry Christmas. Richard." I read it twice, then saved it in a folder labeled, "Reminders of Why I Took the Risk," because that's what all of this had been. A risk. Leaving my stable job, pursuing freelance work, accepting a position at my brother's former company. Every step had felt uncertain. But uncertainty, I'd learned, was where possibility lived. January hit like a freight train. the community engagement division had more client requests than we could handle, and I was spending 12-hour days trying to keep up with demand while simultaneously interviewing candidates for the 5 new positions Richard had approved. By mid-January, I'd hired 3 of the 5: a copywriter named Jasmine Lee, who'd worked for several nonprofits, a designer named Troy Sanders, with an impressive portfolio of small business work, and a project manager named Rachel Kim, who had experience coordinating complex campaigns on tight budgets. Marcus was thriving in his expanded role, now leading our social media strategies across all clients. Watching him grow from eager assistant to confident strategist in just a few months filled me with pride. But success brought unexpected challenges. On a Tuesday morning in late January, I got called into an emergency board meeting. Richard met me outside the conference room, his expression serious. "What's going on?" I asked, suddenly nervous. "There's been a complaint," he said quietly, "from a competing agency. They're claiming we're undercutting market prices and engaging in unfair business practices." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Don't panic. The board just wants to hear your side and understand the division's pricing structure." I walked into that conference room with my head high, even though my heart was racing. 8 board members sat around the table, including Victoria Brennan, a stern woman in her 60s who I knew had been skeptical of the community engagement division from the start. Richard took his seat at the head of the table. "Elena, thank you for joining us. I'll let you address the board's concerns directly." Victoria didn't waste time. "Miss Wright, we've received a formal complaint from Harrison and Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm. They claim your division is charging rates so low that it's impossible for other agencies to compete, and that you're essentially dumping services below cost to capture market share." "That's not accurate," I said firmly. "Our pricing structure is designed to be affordable for small businesses and nonprofits, who traditionally couldn't access professional marketing services. We're not competing with firms like Harrison and Associates because we're not serving the same clients. But you are serving businesses," another board member, Gerald Thompson, pointed out. "Businesses that might have eventually hired a traditional agency when they grew. With respect, Mr. Thompson, most of our clients would never have hired a traditional agency. They simply would have continued operating with inadequate marketing or no marketing at all. We're creating a new market segment, not stealing from existing ones." Victoria leaned forward. "And your rates? Are you operating at a loss?" "No, our division is profitable. We keep costs low through efficient processes, a lean team structure, and by focusing on scalable solutions. We also leverage technology and templates that can be customized rather than building everything from scratch. Plus, we have the backing of Sutherland Marketing Group's resources, which allows us to negotiate better rates with vendors and service providers." I pulled out my tablet and brought up the financial reports I'd prepared for Richard monthly. "Our profit margin is actually around 18%, which is healthy for a division this new. We're not undercutting anyone. We're simply operating more efficiently and serving a market that's been ignored." Richard nodded. "The numbers support Elena's claim. The division is not only sustainable but growing profitably." Victoria studied me for a long moment. "Miss Wright, there's another concern. Some board members feel that by serving small clients, we're diluting the Sutherland brand. That we should be focused exclusively on high-value corporate accounts. This was the real issue, not the pricing complaint. That was just an excuse." "I understand that concern," I said carefully. "But I'd argue that the community engagement division is actually enhancing the Sutherland brand. We've received national attention from business publications. 3 major corporations have reached out to us because they were impressed by our social impact work and want to partner with a firm that demonstrates those values." I pulled up the emails on my tablet. Last week, Pacific Northwest Bank contacted us about handling their corporate accounts because they saw the work we did with the Future Leaders Initiative. That's a 6-figure contract that came directly because of the division's reputation. The community work isn't diluting our brand, it's elevating it. Gerald perked up at the mention of Pacific Northwest Bank. "They contacted us?" "They specifically requested to work with our team because of our demonstrated commitment to the community. They're launching a new initiative to support small business development, and they want a marketing partner who understands that sector." I could see the mood in the room shifting. Numbers and profit margins were one thing, but landing a major corporate client because of our community work? That was a language the board understood. Victoria wasn't quite ready to concede. What about this complaint from Harrison and Associates? We can't simply ignore it. I suggest we invite them to a meeting, I said. Let them see our actual pricing structure, our client base, and our financial model. I'm confident they'll realize we're not their competition. If anything, we might be able to refer clients to them when those clients outgrow our services. Richard smiled slightly. That's an excellent suggestion. I'll reach out to their CEO and arrange a meeting. The board meeting wrapped up shortly after, with general agreement that the division should continue operating as planned. As I gathered my things, Victoria approached me. "That was well handled, Miss Wright," she said, her tone neutral but not hostile. "You defended your position without being defensive. That's rare. Thank you, Miss Brennan. I'll be watching this division closely," she added. "But I'll admit, the Pacific Northwest Bank development is intriguing." I took that as the closest thing to approval I was likely to get from her. Back in my office, I collapsed into my chair. Marcus poked his head in. "Heard you had a board meeting. Is everything okay?" "Crisis averted," I said. "But remind me to never get comfortable. Success makes people nervous. Want some good news then?" "Desperately." Marcus grinned and pulled out his phone. "Jennifer from Sweet Haven Bakery just posted this." He showed me her Instagram. She'd posted a photo of her bakery's new storefront sign, professionally designed and beautifully lit. The caption read, "1 year ago, I was struggling to keep my doors open. Today, thanks to the incredible team at Sutherland Marketing Group's Community Engagement Division, my business has tripled. I've hired 4 employees, and I'm opening a second location. Dreams do come true when you have people who believe in you. Thank you, Elena Wright and team." The post had over 2,000 likes and hundreds of comments. I felt tears welling up. She's opening a second location? Next month. She wants us to handle the marketing for the launch. This was why I did this work, not for board meetings or defending pricing structures, but for moments like this. For people like Jennifer who just needed someone to give them a chance. That evening, my phone rang. It was Derek. "Hey, I heard through the grapevine that you had some drama today with a competitor complaining," he said. "News travels fast. The marketing world is small. How'd it go?" I filled him in on the board meeting and Victoria's grudging acceptance. Derek whistled. "You landed at Pacific Northwest Bank because of your community work? That's a brilliant strategy. Even if it wasn't intentional. It wasn't a strategy. It was just doing good work." "That's the best kind of strategy," Derek said. "Listen, I'm calling because I wanted to run something by you. Innovate Labs is looking for a marketing agency to help with our Series A fundraising campaign. Big budget, high stakes. I immediately thought of you." I sat up straighter. "Derek, I appreciate that, but wouldn't that be weird? Working together? Maybe. But you're the best person for the job, and I'm not going to let our history stop me from making good business decisions. Besides, my boss specifically asked if I knew anyone who could handle both the corporate messaging and the grassroots community building aspect. Your division literally specializes in that combination. Send me the brief," I said. "Let me look it over and see if we're the right fit." Sending it now. "And Elena? Thanks for considering it. I know it might be uncomfortable." After we hung up, I opened the brief Derek had emailed. Innovate Labs was developing an AI platform for small business inventory management. They needed a campaign that would appeal to venture capitalists while also building grassroots support among their target users. It was perfect. For us. I called an emergency team meeting for the next morning. When I presented the opportunity, the team's excitement was immediate. "This could be huge for us," Jasmine said. "A successful tech startup campaign would open doors to a whole new client sector. Plus, their product actually helps small businesses," Troy added. "It aligns with our mission." Rachel was already making notes. "Timeline? Aggressive. They need preliminary concepts in 2 weeks. Full campaign rollout in 6 weeks." The team didn't hesitate. "We're in." Over the next 2 weeks, we worked harder than we'd ever worked. Late nights, weekend sessions, countless revisions. We developed a dual-track campaign, sophisticated pitch materials for investors, and an authentic, community-focused social media strategy showcasing real small business owners who beta tested the platform. The presentation to Innovate Labs' leadership team included Derek, his CEO Nathan Palmer, and their head of product development, Kimberly Shaw. I was nervous walking in, not because I doubted our work, but because this was Derek's territory, and I didn't want our family history to complicate things. Nathan Palmer put those fears to rest immediately. Derek's told us amazing things about your division's work. We're excited to see what you've put together. For the next hour, my team and I presented our campaign strategy. Jasmine walked through the investor messaging. Troy showcased the visual identity. Marcus demonstrated the social media rollout. Rachel broke down the timeline and deliverables. When we finished, Kimberly was smiling. Nathan was nodding enthusiastically. Derek was trying not to look too proud, but failing. "This is exactly what we needed," Nathan said. "You understood both audiences perfectly. When can you start?" "Immediately," I said. We signed the contract that afternoon. As we packed up our materials, Derek walked me to the elevator. "You killed it there," he said. "We had a good brief to work from." "Elena, just take the compliment." I laughed. "Fine. We killed it." "Yeah, you did." He paused. "You know what's weird? I'm not jealous anymore. I'm just genuinely impressed by what you've built. That's growth, big brother. Melissa would be proud of this moment. She's been coaching me on celebrating other people's success." The elevator arrived, and I stepped in. "Tell her she's doing great work." As the doors closed, Derek called out, "Hey, Elena, I'm glad you're my sister." I smiled the entire drive back to the office. 3 months later, I stood backstage at the Portland Business Excellence Awards, smoothing down my dress for the 100th time. The Community Engagement Division had been nominated for the Innovation and Social Impact category, and somehow, impossibly, we'd won. Marcus, Jasmine, Troy, and Rachel were with me, all dressed up and buzzing with nervous energy. Richard had flown back early from a conference in New York just to be here for the ceremony. "I can't believe this is happening," Jasmine whispered. "We've only been operational for 10 months. 10 months of changing lives," Troy corrected with a grin. The Innovate Labs campaign had been a massive success. Nathan's company had secured their Series A funding, raising $12 million. They'd specifically mentioned our campaign's authenticity and reach during their investor presentations. More importantly, 300 small businesses had signed up for their beta program based on the community engagement strategy we'd built. That success had opened floodgates. 2 more tech startups had hired us. A regional restaurant chain wanted us to handle their community outreach. Even Victoria Brennan had sent me an email, brief but genuine, saying, "I was wrong about your division." Well done. Pacific Northwest Bank's campaign was launching next week, and early internal reviews were calling it the most authentic corporate social responsibility initiative they'd seen in years. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. And now, accepting the award for innovation and social impact, Elena Wright, Senior Director of the Community Engagement Division at Sutherland Marketing Group. My team pushed me toward the stage. The lights were blinding as I walked out, my heels clicking on the polished floor. I accepted the Crystal Award from the presenter, a local business leader I recognized from news articles. I stood at the microphone, looking out at hundreds of faces in the audience. Somewhere in there were my parents, Richard, and according to the text I'd received earlier, Derek and Melissa. 10 months ago, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I was freelancing from my 1-bedroom apartment, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life by leaving corporate security. I had 3 clients, a tight budget, and a dream that felt impossible to use marketing not just to sell products, but to empower people and strengthen communities. I paused, gathering my thoughts. This award isn't really mine. It belongs to Jennifer Cole, who went from struggling bakery owner to thriving entrepreneur with 2 locations. It belongs to David Torres and Future Leaders Initiative, who've doubled their volunteer base and expanded their youth programs. It belongs to every small business owner and nonprofit director who believed that their story mattered enough to tell it well. The audience was quiet, listening. I want to thank Richard Sutherland for seeing potential where others saw risk, and for building a company where doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. I want to thank my incredible team, Marcus Patterson, Jasmine Lee, Troy Sanders, and Rachel Kim, who pour their hearts into every project and never settle for good enough when we can reach for excellence. I spotted my parents in the crowd. Mom was crying, naturally. Dad was sitting up straight, beaming with pride. But most importantly, I want to thank everyone who's ever taken a risk on themselves. Who quit the safe job to chase the meaningful one? Who chose purpose over prestige? Who believed that the world needed what only they could offer? This award is proof that those risks matter, and that sometimes the scariest decisions lead to the most beautiful destinations. The applause was thunderous. I walked off stage, clutching the award, barely processing what had just happened. My team mobbed me immediately. All hugs and excited chatter. Richard found me in the chaos. That was a hell of a speech. I didn't prepare anything. I just spoke from the heart. The best speeches usually are. He smiled. Elena, the board meeting next week, we're going to discuss expanding the community engagement model to our offices in Seattle and San Francisco. They want you to oversee the rollout. I stared at him. Regional expansion? You've proven the model works. Now we scale it. Are you ready for that? Was I ready? A year ago, I would have been terrified. Now? Absolutely. The after-party was held in a rooftop venue overlooking the city. I found my parents quickly, and Mom practically tackled me with her hug. I'm so proud of you, I could burst, she said, crying into my shoulder. Dad just pulled me close and whispered, You did good, kiddo. Really good. I was talking with some attendees about our division's work when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find Derek and Melissa. Congratulations, Derek said, and his smile was genuine. That speech was incredible. You had people crying. You made me cry, Melissa confirmed, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. How's Innovate Labs treating you? I asked Derek. His face lit up. We just closed our Series A, as you know. Nathan promoted me to VP of Marketing and gave me equity in the company. And, he exchanged a glance with Melissa. We're going to have a baby, I gasped and threw my arms around both of them. Oh my God, congratulations. We just found out last week, Melissa said, beaming. We're due in September. I'm going to be an aunt. Mom's going to lose her mind. We're telling her next Sunday, Derek said. But we wanted you to know first. He paused. Elena, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for how I treated you. Watching what you've built, seeing the lives you've changed, I'm in awe of you. You took a risk I never had the courage to take, and you've created something that actually matters. Derek, you took a risk too. You left corporate life for a startup. That takes courage. Only after I lost everything first. You did it because you believed in something better. He shook his head, smiling. You were always the brave one. I was just too insecure to see it. Melissa squeezed his hand proudly. For what it's worth, I said. I think the Derek who can admit that is a lot better than the one who couldn't. Therapy and humility. Who knew they'd work so well together? He raised his glass. To take risks. And become better people. I clinked my glass against his. To second chances and new beginnings. As the night wound down, I found myself standing alone on the rooftop terrace, looking out at Portland's skyline. The city lights sparkled below, and I thought about the journey that had brought me here. 1 year ago, I'd been terrified and uncertain, leaving behind everything familiar to chase a dream I could barely articulate. I'd endured months of self-doubt, family criticism, and financial stress. I'd been humiliated at a wedding, called an unemployed loser in front of strangers. And somehow, that moment of humiliation had become the catalyst for everything that followed. If Derek hadn't introduced me to Richard that way, would Richard have seen past the casual interaction to ask about my work? If I hadn't been forced to defend my choices at that moment, would Richard have understood my qualifications? If Derek's cruelty hadn't revealed his character, would I have gotten the opportunity at all? The universe worked in strange ways. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Miss Wright, this is Nathan Palmer from Innovate Labs. Derek gave me your number. Our company is planning to establish a nonprofit arm focused on providing free technology tools to underserved communities. We want your division to handle all branding and marketing. Interested? I smiled and typed back, Very interested. Let's schedule a call. Another project. Another opportunity to make a difference. Marcus appeared beside me on the terrace. There you are, boss. People are asking for you inside. Let them wait a minute, I said. I'm having a moment. He leaned against the railing next to me. It's pretty cool, isn't it? What have we built? It's surreal. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. You know what I realized tonight? Marcus said. You gave me a chance when I was just some kid fresh out of college with a decent portfolio and big dreams. You saw potential in me, the same way Richard saw it in you. And now I'm part of something that actually matters. That's not just a job, that's a legacy. I felt my eyes getting misty. Don't make me cry. I've cried enough tonight. Too late, he said, grinning. But seriously, thank you. For taking a chance on me, for teaching me what marketing with purpose looks like, and for showing me that success and integrity don't have to be enemies. You earned every opportunity you've gotten, Marcus. Never forget that. We stood there for a moment, two people who'd taken risks and found something better on the other side. Inside, the party was still going strong. I walked back in, award in hand, surrounded by my team, my family, my colleagues, and my community. This was success, not measured in corner offices or six-figure salaries, but in lives changed and dreams realized. My brother had called me an unemployed loser, and his boss had fired him for it. But the real story wasn't about revenge or karma or poetic justice. It was about a woman who took a risk, built something meaningful, and discovered that sometimes the worst moments of your life are just the universe clearing space for the best ones to arrive. And that was a story worth telling. Sometimes the people who doubt you the loudest are the ones who teach you your most valuable lessons, not through their encouragement, but through their dismissal. My brother's cruelty forced me to articulate my worth out loud, to defend my choices with conviction, and to meet the person who would give me the opportunity to prove what I'd always known I was capable of. If someone's treating you like you're not good enough, remember this. Their opinion isn't the truth. It's just their story. And you get to write your own. Make it a good one. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell too. Never miss our latest uploads.